Hi, I'm Lindsay Juergens, and this is Leaders Like Us. Thank you to Ken's for being our series sponsor. Today, I have, I don't know, maybe the most special guest ever, probably 10 out of 10. This is Jocelyn Reyna. She works with me at Leadership Unlimited, and after all these years of doing this, finally got you for an interview. So thank you for joining us, Jocelyn.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we get to know Jocelyn a little bit? You have lived in Grand Island for a long time. Can you just give us some backstory about you?
Yes. So I was born in Mexico. I was born in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua. And then I moved to Grand Island with my family when I was 9 years old. I went to school here. I went to college at UNL in Lincoln. And then I came back to Grand Island, and I've been working in nonprofits for about 7 years now. I started working in nonprofits when I was in college. And so, yeah, and now I'm here.
What made you want to get into nonprofit work in the first place?
So actually, I never really knew what nonprofit was. When I was in college, I majored in criminology and criminal justice because I wanted to go to law school. Because I felt like being a lawyer was the way I could help in giving back to my community.
Oh, sure.
And then I got ready and I took the LSAT, and then I realized that I wasn't ready for law school, and I didn't know how else can I give back. And that's when, I started getting into the nonprofit field of like helping out my community. And and I really loved it. I mean, I have had different jobs since I graduated college, but they've all been in nonprofit. So I just really love being able to give back.
That's awesome. And you don't mess around with community involvement. You are a super pro. My husband and I were watching TV the other night, and he goes, "That's Jocelyn." I was like, "Yeah, she's everywhere you look. She's on billboards, she's on commercials." But it's all for reasons that are consistently you advocating for our community, which is really beautiful. So, did you envision yourself becoming the poster child of giving back to your community?
No. It's funny because like when I was growing up, I was like very shy.
Oh, yeah?
And so like when I came to the United States, I was learning English, right? And like at some point, my teachers didn't know like if I knew English because I really didn't talk back.
Yeah.
And then I think in college, it really helped me to like come out of my comfort zone because everything I've done now, like little me would have never imagined like that's what I would be doing. Like public speaking and all the stuff I've done, like I was like not the person to be able to do that, and now I'm just like, it's so crazy because all the stuff that I've done, it's not to get a video, get recognition, but I'm like, I feel like what you put out into the world, it comes back. And I'm like, I feel like, I've done all this work, and then they're like, hey, we want to make a video of you for this. Hey, we want to do this for you. And I was like, I wasn't doing it for those things, but it's nice to have some recognition.
It is. And you also just set a really good example I think about our young people in general, but also our young people who are immigrants. I think about them a lot and the representation that they have in you. That's pretty unbelievable. But for any little kid, like I think about that. I'm like, I could grow up and be like Jocelyn. Like, it's just really important work that you do. Okay, so currently, obviously, you work for Leadership Unlimited.
Yes.
And what else do you have happening right now?
I am also with Big Brothers Big Sisters. This will be our 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 5th year with my little. Awesome. So, yes.
So cool. And you make delicious candies.
Yes, I have my small business that I make candy, and I've been doing that for 4 years now. I actually started February 2020, which is like right before COVID, which nobody knew COVID was coming.
Nope.
But it's been great since. And I've made a lot of like connections with people. I've been able to give back as a sponsor to the community. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, and it's called?
The Chile Lab.
Yes. And you are on socials. Yes. I can testify to its goodness. It is delicious. The people in my world also love it. So that's super fun. Funny story. the first time I purchased from you, I didn't know it was Jocelyn, and I already knew you, but I didn't know the Chili Lab was yours.
Yes.
And I sent my husband to go pick it up from this location.
Yeah, because it was like for the Christmas, one of the Christmas trays. I think that's why he showed up.
Yeah, and I was like, this will be fun. And he said, I remember him asking though, like, who is it? And I said, I don't know. It was totally this person I knew. So it's just funny.
Yes.
I mean, maybe it was a little dangerous too. Just be like, go meet this person for candy.
Yes. I think at first I didn't want to show my face because I felt like I wanted people to like the product for itself and not because it was me.
It's just so that's admirable.
Why, I was just like, I just want people to know, like, to like the product and not buy because, like, oh, I know her. She's my friend, right? I'm like, I just want the product to do, like, its work. But then later people were like, no, you need to show your face more. So then I started doing that. And I'm like, okay, it's me.
Yeah, surprise.
Yes.
Yes, you know me. That's so cool. How did you get into that? What made you want to start the candy business?
So, fun fact, I always say this, it was never supposed to be a business. So I am a DACA recipient. So I have a work permit that I have to pay for every 2 years, and it's $500. Now actually it went up a little bit more than that, almost $600. And so I have to pay to be able to keep working in the United States. And in 2020, and it's always been in limbo. They didn't know what was going to happen to DACA, and my work permit was going to expire in October of 2020. So February 2020, I was like, they were talking about like it might end soon. So I was like, do I risk and wait until October, or do I renew now and get 2 more years?
Right.
And so I kind of panicked, and I was like, how can I get money? And it was almost around Valentine's Day, so I was going to do chocolate covered strawberries. But I'm a like perfectionist, so then I freaked out because I'm like, what if there's not enough berries at the store? What if I have a lot of orders and I don't have time? Like I just was like, how can I do them? And I have bought some of those candies from this girl in Texas. And so I kind of started watching videos, and I kind of started like messing with the recipe and doing it on my own. And I had my family try it. And from when I started to now, like it's been better. And so then I just posted on my Snapchat, and I was like, hey guys, I'm selling this candy. Like, it's to raise funds for my DACA. And so some people that lived out of town, they were like, hey, like, just sending you some money. Like, I'm not interested in the candy.
Right.
I'm not a big candy person. And so then I just, I got enough money to pay for my DACA, my work permit. And then after that, I was like, okay, I think I'll stop here. And then people were like, when's the next order? When's the next order? And I just, I kept going. And then I officially made it an LLC because I was like, okay, this is like a legit business, and I have to like, do everything right. And so, and so then now like 4 years later, like this is where I'm at. So
that's wild. I did not know that.
Yes.
That is so cool.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. And actually, catching on to one little piece of your story, not little piece, a substantial piece, the DACA recipient piece. So obviously, you've been a DACA recipient. We know a lot of people who are, whether or not they talk about it, that we have a lot of folks who are DACA recipients right here in Grand Island. And you have done advocacy for those folks, including yourself. Would you be able to share a little bit? If someone is like, I've heard the term, I don't know what that means. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So DACA was passed in 2012 by the Obama administration. It stands for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. So it protects kids that came into the country with their families as kids. They were not kids anymore, they're adults, but young adults that came with their families. And so it just gives us a way to be able to stay in the country and work, and then it protects us from deportation. But it's been on the limbo since it got passed of like, did it get passed the correct way? Like, what do we do with all these DACA recipients? Because we also don't have a pathway to citizenship. And so I've had DACA since 2012. And just because I've had it that long, I can't just apply for citizenship. Like, I'm still in this 2-year renewal. And so when I was in college, actually, Nebraska was the last state to issue driver's licenses. And so that's when I came out with my story. I never really told my friends. I mean, that's a very like sensitive topic, and I didn't want people to know like And not because I was like ashamed, but I was just scared. You know, I was like, what does this do to me if I put myself out there and, you know,
Sure.
share my immigration status? And so in college, they were looking for people to go testify at the unicameral and share why we, you know, should get driver's licenses, you know. And to me, it was straightforward. Like, we were giving a work permit, we should be giving a license to be able to drive to work.
Yeah, you would think.
And so I was one of the people that went to testify, and it was kind of scary, right? It was my first time, like, talking in front of senators, sharing my story in front of people, and that's when I felt like doing my advocacy work. And then after that, I got a couple of opportunities to travel to Washington, D.C. and talk to senators about, you know, what it's like being a DACA recipient in Nebraska, and, you know, why they should support citizenship for us and all those things that we have contributed. I don't have all the data, but there's data out there for the United States and then for Nebraska of like business owners, teachers, people who have bachelor's, master's degree, like all those things we've done. And a lot of DACA recipients, I came here when I was 9, so I remember my childhood in Mexico, but a lot of DACA recipients were brought here when they were like 6 months old, 1 year old, so like they have no recollection of their home countries. And so like we've been here all our lives. So yeah, I feel like by sharing my story, I am able to advocate and, you know, put a face to the story that maybe people might hear something on the news that are like, oh, I heard something about this, but I don't know who it impacts, you know? And so I try to put a face to the issue.
That is so cool. And I mean, obviously it should be you with the microphone in this case, because you just know your stuff about it. Also, how infuriating.
Yes.
Side note, how infuriating to even hear about it. I can't imagine how difficult it is for an individual having to deal with this over and over every 2 years. But it's pretty incredible that you went in front of the unicameral to advocate for, why shouldn't I have my driver's license?
Yes.
I mean, really though, if you're thinking about making our communities in Nebraska function more smoothly, and we don't have public transportation that is high functioning around here. So what are folks supposed to do? This feels like the least common sense pushback you could possibly land on in saying, no, they shouldn't have a driver's license.
Yes.
How silly. So yeah, you're like, yeah, I know, how silly.
Yeah. Yes.
But that's just incredible that you were doing that at such a young age too. All right, so we know that you are not shy in advocacy, which is a really important thing. I think that anybody who knows you, anybody who spends any time around you, knows what an important asset you are in this community. You touched on Big Brothers Big Sisters, and obviously you're a mentor, but you've also chaired the board.
Yes.
And you continue to challenge yourself. Like, I think that that's a fair statement. There's never a moment where you seem to be in the back seat and like, well, I'll just see where we go. Like, no, you're in the driver's seat all the time.
Next? Yeah.
But what would you say sort of launched this Jocelyn, the development of who you are now? You talked about shy Jocelyn. Your teachers were like, we're not sure if she speaks English. You know, what brought you here? Was it mentoring? Was it specific guidance? Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, I feel like to where I am today, I'm thankful for like my parents. I feel like I saw all the sacrifices that they did, like to bring us to this country, you know, to have a better future here. And so I wanted to, you know, make my parents proud, make my family proud. But then I feel like growing up, I didn't like on TV or, you know, at school, I didn't really see like a Latina or someone that looked like me. And so I feel like as I was growing up, I just felt like I want to be that person. I want to be that mentor that little girls, like little Latina girls look up to, and they're like, oh, I see her, like I want to be like her, you know. And I've done several keynote with different young audiences, and I just like I've gotten messages and, you know, notes of like, oh my gosh, I really liked your speech, or I really identified with this. Or even some kids, you know, even like they were born here, but their parents are immigrants, are like, oh, where are you from? Like, my parents are from here. Like, even like those little things that I'm like, they felt a connection with me. Like, that just makes me happy, because I'm like, even if it was out of 100 kids, one kid felt connected, like that's my goal.
Yeah. Yeah. And how would you say your parents impacted that piece, that growth piece in you specifically?
I feel like my parents always pushed me. I mean, they both didn't get to go to college, and obviously life was harder in Mexico. So I feel like they always pushed me to take advantage of the different opportunities that I had here in the U.S. and just push me to, be a better version of myself. And I felt like my dad was always like, you always got to give it 100. So every time I did something, whether it was at school or in the community or, even when I was doing my business, I'm like, what can I do better? How can I bring the 100% that I have? And so I feel like they have pushed me to just be a better version.
That's awesome. Okay. I know that you must be proud of what you've accomplished. You have to be, because it's major. But looking back at little Jocelyn, so a little shy, she just wants to take it all in. She doesn't want to speak up and use her big voice yet because it really hasn't even developed yet. What would you tell little Jocelyn if you had the chance?
Ooh, I feel like I would tell her to dream big and to just keep going forward, and that mistakes are okay. Like I said, a lot of things I'm always like a perfectionist, and I'm like, this has to go this way, and if it doesn't, like, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
And just telling her like it's okay to dream big, and you are gonna accomplish like so many things. Like I feel like I saw this TikTok, this video that
We read an article.
A reviewed article, but of saying like it was this video of saying like if you like close your eyes, like hug your little self right now, like, and it was like so emotional for me because I was just like even sometimes when I talk with people and they're like, oh, you've done all these things, like sometimes as an adult I sit and I'm like, oh my God, like I've done all these things, and I just feel like going back to tell my little self like you did all these things, she would be like, wait, how?
Wow. Is that really me?
Yeah.
Like it probably wouldn't even seem possible.
Yeah.
I think, because I think about that for myself, and I've not walked in your shoes, but I think about the little me and the little version of other people. You're like, there's no way you saw yourself being big and bold and taking scary steps, and that's just incredible. And I bet little Jocelyn would be like, she seems so cool.
Yes, I like her.
I like her. That is amazing. So what do you think is next for you? I mean, it doesn't have to be anything in particular, but what would you say you might get into, find yourself in next in Grand Island?
I feel like, God willing, in the future, able to get my citizenship. I think the first thing I want to do is be able to run, well, obviously vote, but run for office. I think that has always been my dream. And when I talk to people, right, they're like, oh, like this, you would be great on this. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not a citizen, and it's hard. Again, there's not an application I can just go to the post office and fill out. And so I'm like, that's literally, I feel like that's what's stopping me, because I feel like I have a lot of support in the community. And I'm like, I literally like, God willing, in the future, get my citizenship. And like, I want to be able to run for office. One, because I've lived here, I care for the community, and, I just want to help better Grand Island and represent the community.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And I love that. And I've heard you say that before, and I still love it as much as I did the first time I heard it. That's, I mean, what a gift to Grand Island that would be. Truly. Do you have any specific things you might be interested in running for that you would be willing to share?
No, I feel like, I've kind of thought about like the school board, and also city council. But I feel like there's probably other positions that I haven't really looked at or don't really know exactly what they do. So I feel like I would do a little bit more research on what is needed, or maybe what changes people would want to see.
Right. And then another piece to that too is, what is the impact of this board or whatever? What are they actually impacting? Because that's so interesting too, to learn about.
Yeah.
What the responsibility of city council is, and school board and county board and all the different, everything. Mayor.
Yeah.
Jocelyn, as a final question, I just want to touch on the fact that I know you grew up here for the most part, and then you went away to Lincoln. I know you
Yes.
got your degree at UNL, and then you came back to GI.
Yes.
Why Grand Island? Why are you here? Why do you plan on sticking around here? Why Grand Island?
Yes. So obviously, I grew up in Grand Island, and I think growing up, I had a lot of teachers and a lot of support in this community. So I felt like I wanted to come back to my community so I could give back to the people that, gave to me. And so I just, I love being here. I know a lot of young people, they go out to like the bigger cities, and I also, for a long time, I felt like I couldn't, there was this like, what's the word? Like people are always like, oh, you can't succeed in your home country, your like hometown. Like if you go back to your hometown, it's like, oh, everything just isn't good. Or, you have to go to the big city
Right.
to be successful. And at some point I felt like that, but then coming back to Grand Island and all the work I've done and all the people I've met, I'm just like, well, it's not like that. Like, and
Yeah.
that's why I love, being here in the future, being able to, take different roles within the community.
Yeah. What a great answer.
Thank you.
And thank you. I'm
Yes.
going to speak for all of Grand Island. I'll just take that upon myself right now. Thank you.
Yes.
From Grand Island to Jocelyn. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here. Thank you for doing everything that you do. Speaking of the fact that Jocelyn Reyna is with Leadership Unlimited, and I am making an exit. I'll be joining a different organization, meaning that I will no longer be the interviewer for Leaders Like Us. Jocelyn will now be the interviewer for Leaders Like Us. So I want to thank you for taking this over. This has been
Yes,
such a
no,
joy
thank
for
you.
me to do, and I have no doubt that you'll knock it out of the park, probably far better than I have ever done. So I think that it's just a perfect fit, and I just want to personally thank you for doing this moving forward.
Yes. No, thank you. You've done a great job, and now I have big shoes to fill.
Nope, they're average size shoes. All right, well, thank you, Jocelyn, for joining me today. Thank you for being our series sponsor, KINS. We appreciate you. I am Lindsay Juergens, your now former interviewer for Leaders Like Us, and this is Jocelyn Reyna.
Thank you.
Thanks.